Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Revenue Lounge. I'm your host, Randy Likas, and today I'm very excited to have Andy Mowat joining me on the show. Andy's one of those leaders who's seen the go-to-market journey from every angle. He's been an entrepreneur several times. He's been a go-to-market operator at 4 different tech unicorns, and now he's the founder of Whispered. Andy, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Randy. Great to be here.
Yeah. I usually like to start these episodes with just maybe having you walk us through your background, maybe your career journey, and ultimately what led you to start Whispered.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say I'd break it into a couple phases. There was went to college, East Coast, banking, private equity. I've wiped some of that off because I was early in career, and as you get older, you want to make sure people still think you're young. I then went to Stanford for business school. I worked for a wealthy family for like 5 or 6 years that was not tech, and then I decided I needed to get into tech. And so I cold called the CEO of what became Upwork, ended up working for him. He ended up having me run a piece of the sales team. He ended up having me figure it. We didn't have a CRM, so I built it. I think like most people, I just fell into the RevOps side, and then I think I started blasting million send emails for them as well too. So I just kind of kept going down the rat hole of what can you do with systems and technology. And this was in like 2008, 2009. So like most people, I'm kind of self-taught and I love getting my hands deep. I then did another startup. Then I went to Box where I took over at post-IPO all the post-sale operations. And at some point, I think they needed someone to run MOPS too. And so I took that over. And then I went to Culture Amp and really cranked that from, call it, 5 million to 150 million in revenue. Just a really fun ride with good people. And then did another startup and then did Carta, and where I saw your most recent guest, Jeff Perry. He's a friend. And then I've been building Whisper. I think for me, it's like 3 times I've had to navigate in when I'm like, don't have the right background. And so I've gotten really good at how do you be proactive in your career. And I think that's what we've really built Whisper around, which is when you pop your head up, it's scary. You don't know where to look. The roles aren't posted at the senior levels. You don't know which companies are hot or aren't anymore because it changes every couple of years. Yeah. And so we just try to help with that.
So if you go look at maybe the different inflection points that you had throughout your career that kind of shaped your thoughts on leadership, what do you think some of those might have been?
I think early on in the career, you don't know how to hire and manage. And so you learn, right? And first you learn how to be a good IC manager. Then you figure out, wow, you really need this group of directors underneath you. And so I've written a really fun article on what does it take to be director level. And that's a powerful one where I just know, like, how do you grow really strong people underneath you and get more effective? I think when I walked in the door to Culture Amp, I got to build a team from scratch. I didn't have to cycle over any of it. I got really good at like building and growing great people. And then when I went to Carta, like I got really smart at like, how do you get the right team in place really fast? Having worked with underneath great people, I really learned what types of bosses are important and then fundamentally like how GTM decision making is made, and that process in a company is really important.
So that's a good segue. So I'd love to get your perspective just from a RevOps leader role. I talked to several different folks from several different companies, and you're basically the central nervous system of so many different functions. And you can either be incredibly strategic or you could be really tactical. And I guess when you think about it from a RevOps leader standpoint, what separates a RevOps leader from being able to earn that executive trust from those who maybe just get buried in like the execution side of things?
Yeah, I talk a lot with, call it director level people, and they always say, I'm struggling to get more budget. I had somebody ping me the other day, it's like, hey, I need to ask for 4 headcount next year. Do you have a budget template? I'm like, hold on a second. That's not the right way to do this thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I remember when I was at Box, and the CCO said, you're not getting any headcount unless the business gives it to you. And I was like, okay, great. So what that really means is I need to help the business appreciate the impact we're driving and force them to make trade-offs. And so I did that. I think I turned around the next quarter and I got 3 or 4 headcount, because like the head of scaled CS is like, wow, you can help me grow faster than me hiring another 2 CSMs, yep. Right? The head of support's like, hey, if you do this, you can do that. So really powerful on that. And then I've just taken that everywhere I've gone, which is every company is going to be tight on headcount, right? Like assume you will be. And so you have to have the maturity to like force people to make trade-offs. And to me, the wrong answer is, cool, we got that, we'll do it. The right answer is, amazing. Do I understand this correctly? Here's the order I see it in the priority for the business. If we have a problem with that, we can go talk to the CRO or the CEO and reprioritize. I have no problem with that. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But if we don't, that's where I'm going to attack it in. Are we okay? And I did that at another company. And, a week later, the head of account management said, Andy needs, I'm going to give Andy one of my headcount for my budget, right? So I find that ability to force trade-offs is a critical skill set across the business. Now, there are CEOs and leaders that are like founder mode, don't need to make trade-offs, just like give me everything all the time. And those are the ones I run from.
Yeah. So is it a skill set that the RevOps leader has to have in order to be more strategic, or is it a cultural thing where they before they take the role, they've got to think about like, how does this leadership team think about RevOps today, and am I going to be able to drive that impact that ultimately I want to make?
I think it's on you. I think it's on you as a leader versus being like, oh, it's the situation, right? Yeah. I think it's on you. You can ask some questions to assess things like how do they make trade-offs, how do they set strategy, and there'll be some good things and there'll be some bad things. But fundamentally, I think too many people are like, woe is me, rather than taking responsibility and going to figure out the problem.
Yeah. So RevOps is changing so rapidly, right? Think about where it was 4 or 5 years ago to where it is today. I would just be, and you've seen it from like multiple growth stages. Where do you think the function's headed over the next 3 to 5 years? Is it what parts get automated? What parts stay really valuable? If somebody's early in their career, like what would you recommend that they really optimize for to make sure that they're relevant and important in the next couple of years?
I think it's an increasingly critical function as data becomes more and more important. I think we're going to see, and I believe that there's a massive shift underway in the fundamental like core GTM systems. And that's why I created this cool group with a couple friends called GTM Council, where we basically just have fun vendors in to talk about like, how's the market evolving? But like, I don't think we're going to be using Salesforce or Marketo in 3 to 5 years, right? Like on the Marketo side, like there's this really cool company, Inflection, that sold their company to Marketo, and now they're going out and attacking them. On the Salesforce side, I'm tracking like 12 CRM 2.0 competitors that are the idea that you have a clunky UX with a good fundamental data architecture, but that nobody wants to use, and then you got to go bolt on a calling thing, and your data is not structured for AI, or do you like actually do it right the first time, right? And so I think I see a shift happening in GTM tech. We're all using legacy crap and we're bolting stuff on right now, and it's kind of depressing. Yep. But I feel like that's going to change. And so I get short-term pessimistic, mid-term optimistic. In terms of the skill sets, I think you need a data skill set, right? Like if you don't know what DBT means, if you don't know what ETL is, if you don't have a good partnership with your product and data eng team, if you don't have BI and analytics capabilities within RevOps, that's there. I would also say there's this GTM engineer concept that people somehow think is like a shortcut, right? There's no shortcut for getting great data and great GTM systems working together. And so I deeply believe that GTM engineer should be a new function underneath RevOps that's ideally automating as much of the run the business stuff for both RevOps and for the reps themselves, and innovating on things. And I have a lot of friends that are doing that. And so for me, that's kind of how I view the world evolving. We talk to a lot of talent partners, a lot of VCs, and a lot of recruiters, and they're seeing an increasing demand for RevOps, which is good to hear. Like I've seen historically people hold off on it, but I'm seeing as these companies are growing really fast, they're recognizing it.
Yeah, so one of the things, Andy, you and I talked about this when we met a couple of months ago in San Francisco, is over the past couple of years, I have sort of like silently been a fan of yours because of the content that you put out and the thought leadership that you put out. And one thing I've noticed as I've kind of like been that person like viewing all of your content is you're a connector. I think that you like meeting new people. You also like helping people quite a bit as well, and you enjoy helping people make connections, right? So I'm curious. First, like accurate in that assessment, and then second, like what role did like that play in you deciding to start Whisper?
You're right. I do love to connect people. It gives me a lot of joy. I think it helps me help them. Every time I'm listening to something, I'm always writing down the 2 or 3 people that I think would be most beneficial for somebody. I've done 4 runs at 4 unicorns. They've been really fun. I've learned a lot. I think I reflected back kind of midway through Carta, and I'm like, what do I really enjoy about life? And it's like I enjoy connecting people. And I also have seen the pain that people have had on jobs. And so I think for me, my career 2.0, and OpenAI comes calling for a head of RevOps, maybe we'll talk. But beyond that, I think my career 2.0 is I really love kind of three areas of connecting people. One is role related. I think it's actually when you connect somebody for a sales process, it's hard. But if you connect two great people together around roles and careers, like that's a benefit both ways. I think I love spending time around go-to-market technology, and we're building this GTM council, which is a lot of fun. And then I got a couple companies that I'm just a huge fan of you got to be a fan of the technology versus just take money to help. But I've got a couple companies where I love working with the CEOs. Yeah. I advise them on go-to-market strategy, and then I open doors. And that's kind of how I think about the portfolio.
Yeah, which is why when we sat down and you told me what you're up to, I'm like, God, that's so natural for like what I've seen you do the past couple of years in terms of like just helping people out and connect. And we've got some common friends. Matt over at RevOps Co-op is like, oh my God, Andy's fantastic, right? That's right. So one of the things as I was preparing for this conversation that we're going to have today is when you started Whispered, you started it at a time that I think was like a go-to-market reset, right? Like we had gone through a bunch of layoffs. A lot of good people were in the market. Hiring was being pulled back, right? People had just laid off a bunch of people. So if they were going to be posting new roles, like there's some sensitivity around that. And so I think it was like a really interesting sort of market dynamic. Am I saying that correctly? Or like what I'm trying to get at is like, what was the founding sort of idea for starting Whispered, and did it have to do with that market dynamic, or did it have to do with more of a passion of yours?
More of a passion. I wasn't trying to time the market. When I was searching before I found Carta, like I was a failed startup CEO and I was scared. And so I was like, how do I do this, right? Like, will anyone hire me again? And so I basically called up all my friends that were in the role that I do. And I said two things to them. I was like, what do you do when you meet an interesting company or when you interview someplace and you learn it's a total shit show? And they're like, well, I kind of got this Google sheet, but I don't do anything with it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I want that, right? Like I want, and then the other thing I asked them is, when a recruiter calls you, what do you do with that? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, cool, I want that. And so like, I built that for myself. And I was searching and I was like, cool, anyone else want to join along on my search, right? Like, how can we help each other? Because I was going to do it I wasn't going to do it the same way. And so that was fun. And then, I met Jeff, actually, who you just had the podcast at a bar. And Jeff's like, shit, we need someone to do this. And I met the new COO at Carta and I was like, wow, like Jeff and that guy, really impressive. And so I ended up going and accepting a Carta, but I had like 3 or 4 weeks before then. So I was like, hey, let me just build something, right? Like, because I feel like when you're a leader, sometimes you don't get a chance to build something. So like I bought the domain whispered.com. I was like, how do I put some sort of branding around this thing and have some fun with it? And I did. And I shipped the domain and it looked terrible, but like I wrote the tagline, which is your next role won't be posted, it'll be whispered. And I just helped a couple of the people I was helping, like, on the side while I was doing it, not to make money, but just to continue to like understand if there was something there. And so that's how it came about.
So this wasn't your first time starting a company, right? You had done that previously. Is there anything that surprised you this time around, or good or bad, that you've seen kind of in this go around?
People, unfortunately, are cheap as shit on their careers. Right? Like, well, think about it this way. Recruiters, if you hire a recruiter, I'd say at the C level, almost every role is recruited. At the VP level, maybe a third of them are recruited. Yeah. External recruiters charge 25 to 33%. Yeah. Companies are willing to pay that. If somebody charged you 25 or 30% of your salary, you'd probably kill them. We're not in that business, right? But we charge people like $1,000 up front, $125 a month, which to me is an absolute, and with no guarantees, right? Like, I think you want a guarantee, go pay 10, 20%. There's people like that'll just be your SDR for your career, but honestly, you've got to do the work. And I've just been surprised at how people are like, no, I'll do it on my own. I can do this, right? And I'm like, really? Why? And so I think that part is something that we definitely have found. We've helped 300 people this year, and it's been powerful. But at the same time, I'm just like, I'm shocked at how cheap some people are in their careers, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, you think about what the small little investment is in terms of what it could pay off for, not just financially, but like fulfillment in the next role, right? And
Yeah.
it's peanuts, right? When you think about it that way. And I also think that perhaps they don't necessarily understand, at least from what my understanding, what you're building. Like you're building this, like I almost call it, I would think about it like a private network of talent, executives or executive teams who maybe don't have the role clearly defined yet. They've got this idea in their mind. They're looking for the right person to maybe help co-create it with them. And then you're also like providing a way to sort of curate and help candidates show the best versions of themselves. And that's
Yeah.
what, to me, what's really unique is it's not just like it's not an online community. It's not a job board. It's really like this private network of professional help, right? In connecting. And where are you going to find that, right? It's a really difficult
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. And I think also like I think you're absolutely right. So that is it doesn't exist. I built what I would have myself paid for, and we're having a blast with it.
Yeah. So I was looking at how I hire, then some of the folks that you've spoken with over the past several.
Yeah,
several
yeah, yeah. Although this week we renamed it, just so everyone knows. Somebody else actually had that domain, so we are now Whispered Hiring. But it's awesome. I love that you're checking it out. Yeah.
I like whispered hiring better. We've had some really great leaders, from CEOs to CROs to CMOs, and I just wanted to think about, just ask some questions, like, because you've had maybe a couple dozen, I think, already.
We did 30. We recorded our 33rd episode already, like in just in 6 months. So it's been
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean,
Yeah.
I highly encourage people to check it out because it's really fascinating. You're a great interviewer to get people inside of people's heads and what they think about. Are you seeing any patterns across the different conversations that you're having that kind of showing up again and again, regardless of maybe company size or role, that, when they think about how they're hiring or how they think about evaluating talent, like anything consistent that you're seeing?
Yeah, I'll throw out like three or four. I think it's really interesting. So I think executive alignment, when you think about designing executive roles, I think alignment and culture are really important. I think we talk a lot with people around like just how do they get ready for a role and how do they come up with those roles. And so I think that's really interesting. I think just no big surprises that at the senior level, more recruited. I think we talk a lot about like how do you find and how do you get to talent, but that's also what Whisper's about. So no real insights there. I think a lot of where we spend time on is like the interview process. People have interview. Generally, everyone's got a really thoughtful at the senior levels. When you've gotten there, they have really thoughtful ways to like ask questions and what they're trying to assess. And people are different, right? So like if I was ever going to interview with one of the people that we've ever recorded, you damn right you should listen to that one beforehand. We've been talking a lot with people around like how do you assess AI fluency, which I think has evolved a lot very fast. People have really strong opinions on back channels. I think it is admitted that it is the highest signal anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that is really, really like, and people have all sorts of really good ones. A quote I heard yesterday, we actually had Nick Mehta on yesterday, I recorded with him, and he said, make sure you back channel before you fall in love with a candidate, which I was like, wow, like you just verbalized what 20 other guests had said incredibly well.
Yeah.
A lot of conversations around how do you make senior hires successful as well too. The interesting thing is it's never quite the same, which is fun. Like we ask a similar set of questions, but we just kind of like you do here, we find those threads and then we just pull on them, and we're always learning interesting different things.
Are there any common hiring mistakes that turn out to be pretty expensive mistakes, right? That you think maybe are based on preconceived beliefs or just common challenges that people go, you know what, if my lesson learned on that last hire was this, I'm not going to do that any longer.
Yeah, we haven't been specifically asking who was like what was the biggest mistake, what have you learned? People kind of share up to it, but I think by the time we get to them, they're generally like C-level or CEO. And so they've just had so many of that we're really focused more on like what do they do well rather than what they've learned. Wade Foster, CEO of Zapier, was really good. Like he talked about, he's renowned for doing 20 background references on people. And he talked about how he wasn't very good at hiring. And he's like, well, I'm going to try this and get good at it. So I think they're good. Nick talked yesterday around like how he's learned how to hire marketers better, which is a gift and a challenge, right? So I love kind of hearing how people have grown in their ability to hire as they've gotten more senior. And hopefully, if you're an executive looking to take a job, it really helps you understand, like, how do you get prepared?
Yeah. I'm curious.
Oh, the other one I would say too is across the board, companies are looking for builders rather than leaders. It's like a lot of people you and I know, and you have on podcasts and I have on, they manage directors and VPs, but people are oftentimes looking for, I still need that person to get their hands on keyboards and dive deep. And that is a trend that seems to have come up, A, because it's a hiring market, B, because of AI. People are like, I need you to get in the weeds and really understand this stuff as well too.
That leads me to like this interesting concept I saw across a couple of different calls, which is the idea of, am I hiring for experience or am I hiring for slope or trajectory? And I thought that was a really interesting concept. Can you talk about more about what you mean when you talk about, like, what is someone's slope?
Yeah, Heather Doche from Signifyer, she ran talent there, was on. She talked a lot about that. I think the high slope, she did a great job of defining it. I think it's a little bit vague, but what you're really talking about is an earlier career person that can grow faster than the company's growth, right? And they can keep taking on new roles that are out of their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. I think founders at really rapidly growing companies love those people, right? Like I have this jack of all trades that came in as like a support person, but now they're running sales or something like that. I think you've got to balance. I think it's like your leadership team has to bring some of both, right? Like there are, just as you know, there are lessons you learn in GTM that if you don't understand them, you're going to struggle. So there is a balance between pattern recognition and high slope builder, hacker, talent person.
The idea of like hiring for slope I thought was interesting because do you still hire for slope at a senior executive position? Because you definitely need somebody who's been through the battles and it has the scars to show for it. Yet you don't want someone who has a certain playbook and a certain process and they can't adapt and things like that. And so the question I have is like, is slope, or that idea of slope and trajectory, is that equally as important in an executive role as it is maybe a director level?
I think builder is important versus slope. But so we get all members together kind of once a week and just talk. And I think one member the other day is like, it's not ageism, it's anti-rigidism, right? Like I don't want people that are rigid in their thinking. And generally that tends to correlate pretty closely with age in some ways. And so I think there's that. And then people have this fear of like, are they going to get their hands dirty? Are they going to roll their hands up? Like we had a woman this last week who walked everybody through her case study project, right? And normally with a case study, you're going to take what they give you and it says only work on it for 3 hours, but you'll spend 15 and you'll roll it through ChatGPT 10 times and then you'll turn it into a slide with Gamma. And she went massively above and beyond. She put it into Replit, she used AI to create a fake data set, and then she built a dashboard instead of a deck, right? And you're like, holy crap, that just removed any of those questions around, are you a builder and can you get your hands dirty? Yeah. And so you can see how those are hacks that'll eventually everyone will figure out, but those are brilliant, right? And so you've got to figure out how to stand out and not be perceived as old and rigid.
Yeah. What about on the candidate side? Like, I think people, when they go in, and they certainly have a set of questions that they want to learn about the company, but I think like the way it's important because I think executives assess like the way you think based on the questions that you ask, right?
And yeah.
So tell me more about what your thoughts are there.
I mean, my favorite interview question when I'm the hiring manager for the first time I meet somebody is, great to meet you. I would love to know what questions you've got about the role, the company, and then I'll kind of basically say like, I am comfortable spending as long as you want in this interview. And I'll blabber on for a little while just to give them some time to get their thing. But after that, I'm looking for them to own that meeting, ask their questions, and there are lazy questions, and there are great questions, right? And if you ask me lazy questions, like what's the company strategy or this or that, but you can go as deep as you want. And so like when I interview, I'm just basically like, okay, let's talk about like where are we at? What do we at? What's the team look like? What's the structure? Like how is What are your biggest go-to-market challenges? Hey, here's some of the theses that I have. I'm curious how you're dealing with them. And so I'm not sitting back and waiting for questions to come to me. And I mean, man, it's like 80% of people take themselves out there. And then I think you got to ask questions at the right moments and read the room. It's like you can't be, and if you don't have the offer, you can't be the needy one and just be like, hey, I have 4 more questions or this or that. But when somebody gives you the opportunity to ask questions, it's good. I have another tactic I love. We have a whole playbook on this one, right? Which is taking control of the interview. If you and I are interviewing, you'll ask your question. I'll be like, hey, I'm really excited to meet you, Randy. I got a bunch of questions, but like, I'm excited. Let's go ahead and start with yours. And most interviewers will be like, I'd actually love to hear your questions, right? And so then I own the interview. And so there's all those types of things that are just like, you feel like you know them, but you don't. And I think it's like, I think a lot of people are like, I can wing this career thing. And I'm like, no, really don't. And that's why we've got 85 playbooks for free on our website, whispered.com. And I try to share as much, as you said, I love to write, and I try to share as much of that knowledge as I can.
Yeah. I often think that like people should treat their very first interview or the very first time they're meeting somebody of the different team members, you got to treat it like a sales call. You got to treat it like a discovery call, right? You got to ask really good, important questions, as opposed to a couple topical questions and then I'm going to go right into my deck and give you a pitch. No, nobody wants. People want to hear a good, like, the thing about the challenge yourself. People want to have a good discussion. The best interviews are the ones where you leave that you go, I really had a good discussion with that person. Like that, they made me think a little bit. I think that's what creates momentum and excitement and energy, because that's what it's all about, is getting the person excited about you.
Yeah, can I see myself working with that person?
Yep.
If it's like sitting back and waiting for question, I'm like, I'm going to have to do all the work, and they're going to report to me. So how's that work?
Is there any advice that you'd give, like someone who's maybe been in a role for 7-8 years? They haven't been out there. They haven't, and things have changed a little bit. Like we started to get into this, I guess, with the last question. We kind of answered it a little bit, but like, how does somebody prepare for a good executive interview?
There's so much there. Knowing what you're focused on, having your stories nailed. That's often why I enjoy podcasting, right? Because you get your stories dialed in. Like when I was in role, I would always do it as well too. It's like you asked me at the beginning, Andy, what's your story? Like I had to tell that. How'd you get here? Having your talk track really, really nailed, and being compelling, being clear on what you're after, doing the research on the company, and coming with great questions.
There's no excuse.
God, no.
That's probably the biggest red flag, is when somebody hasn't come in and done the research, not only on the company, but on the people that they're talking with. There's too much out there.
Yeah, I would agree, Randy, completely on that.
Now, what do you think about like the necessity to build your personal brand online these days? Because I think LinkedIn profiles are probably even more important than resumes these days. And so, but yet you go look at somebody's LinkedIn profile and they haven't done anything. Like, how important is it for people to build their social presence or their online presence with thought leadership or commenting, providing their ideas? Like, is that something that you feel executives are looking at beyond the resume?
Oh, got so many great thoughts here. So first, I think there's a line between, somebody once told me there's a line between influencer and thought leader. I hope I'm always on the latter of the two of those rather than the former. It's a fine line, but I post because I care and want to share my thoughts. And Randy, if you ever see anything where you're like, dude, you crossed the line, please tell me. I think I always encourage people to write. We have a playbook on how writing can open up your career. I actually have 8 podcasts where other famous people talk about how writing opened up their career. You mentioned to me, like, you followed me for a while, and we got to know each other partially because I wrote. Like, when I meet people, it's like, hey, Andy, what do you think about this? I have an article for that. So I always coach the people that work for me and for others to write. I think when you have an understanding boss that's really supportive, it can be good. Going on podcasts like this, like if you're a rock star GTM leader, maybe get to know Randy and he might invite you onto the podcast, which is fun. But like, you're going to get to learn your thing, you get seen by other people, your brand gets built. Those are all like nice, not in your face ways to do that stuff. I think, so then you shift over to LinkedIn. The algo is just making it tougher and tougher to really get. I think you should post because you want to write and engage people, not because you want to get likes or followers or anything like that. I think you should also have your LinkedIn be incredibly clear on the story and what you do. I mean, the amount of people that I see, you're just like, okay, but like, I don't understand what you actually do, the value you would give. Like, I've seen some just dramatically fucked up ones. So you just got to be clear. And I've got a lot on mine, but I try my damnedest not to be able to tell a clear story on who I am, and so that people can know how to engage me. It's always bugs me when I get on with somebody, they're like, okay, so is Whisper like a part-time or a full-time thing? I'm like, okay, I didn't do my job, right? Like, but I'm learning on those. I'm like taking those as data points. I'm like, no, I'm all in. It's on there. So yeah, like I remember when I was interviewing at Box and the COO was like, Andy, people love you here, but there's one issue. And I'm like, well, what is? He's like, you're too loud on social. I was like, okay, thank you for that feedback. I have been a CEO, and as a CEO, you talk about founder brand and your job's to be out there and to do that stuff. I was like, I can turn it down. And so he's like, great. And then they hired me. And then like 4 months in at like our first quarter checkpoint, I'm like, hey, like, how am I doing? He's like, fine, turn it back up, do whatever you want. It's like, it actually helps you on this side. So I think those are good things. So those are kind of like my quick take on building your brand and social, but it's got to be authentic and it's got to be good. And then try to make connections and introduce people.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, I think that a lot of people often miss is it is as important for you to engage with others as it is for you just to post, you have to say, right? I think you have to post with authenticity, but like engage in the conversation, show interest. Like that's probably the most, not most important, but one of the most important thing is just not you standing at the corner screaming, but like ask people the questions and engage in the conversation. That's probably equally as important, is because I find a lot of value, as I mentioned before. I sort of silently observe you, but man, somebody make a post and then you comment on it, and like just that context and the threaded engagement is really insightful. So
yeah.
I don't want to take too much of your time, Andy. I want to be cognizant, but what I've heard you say a couple of times is like there's so much more about Whisper than I think what people might realize. It's not just about these pocket listings or these executive connections. You're actually providing people with a lot of content that can help them prepare. So before we kind of move on to what I call like the lightning round, which is a little more fun, lighthearted, what is it about Whisper that I haven't asked you, or that you can share with the audience in terms of what you're building and for them to check it out?
Yeah, Whispered is built for VP plus level go-to-market leaders who are looking. I think we believe that it can be scary. You don't know where to focus. Your network is stale. You don't know which companies are good. Roles aren't posted. It's lonely. So we give away for free on the free plan access to all of our playbooks. So that's like every best practice we've got. A lot of the ones I've touched on are there. So just go to Whisper, do that. You can get that. Increasingly, we'll have a free AI that people can talk with as well too, and chat about their career, and we learn about people, and then we can actually ping them on certain roles. That's all free. On the paid side, Whispered Pro is kind of 4 things. So one is basically just insights on companies, like what is the true backstory on a company, and you can contribute and you can get unposted roles, like you give, you get connections. You help other people with intros and connections. We use a tool called the Swarm, where everyone's plugged in their networks together, and you can basically get to one of 330,000 people with a first degree connection. And then the community, and that's kind of what we do. And I think people come for the roles, but they get most surprised by the power of the network.
Yeah. Well, is it whisper.com, whisper.io? If you just give a plug for how people can find you.
Whisper.com.
Okay. Yep, you got it. Cool. Well, let's transition to the lightning round, which is a little bit more fun, lighthearted. And I've got a question that I've been dying to ask you for the past couple of years. There's this Keanu Reeves. You love a good Keanu Reeves reference. Where did that come from?
So first off, Point Break is one of the all-time great movies of all time. And Keanu is a good human being, as everybody knows. And I think at some point I just started using the meme, maybe at Culture Amp. It's like he's got so many great memes and GIFs. And then I think at some point I saw, it was when I was building my last company, Gated. We ended up seeing that you could buy for $1.99 any dot actor. So I think I bought like DiCaprio, De Niro, like Redford dot actor. I had 200 dot actor domains. Our goal was to like meet the actor protect their email and give them their domain. I gave them all up except Keanu. And then when I joined Carta, I just kind of made it part of my shtick, which was like, there's Keanu emojis in Slack. You know, they emote so much. Like when you have the one like this, or or the one putting on the glasses with the Matrix. Like every single one's got there. So I've got a folder, and it's become bigger than life now. But I've got a folder in my Drive, which has got like 85 Keanu GIFs, and I can use them when it's so needed.
Well, I love it. It's funny because it's like synonymous with your brand. Like everybody's like, I think we did something where I created this like spoof on the Matrix, and I tagged you just because I'm like, I think he's gonna love it. It's around go to market, and it's got Keanu and everything else. So,
I think you got to figure out your thing. What's the Randy thing? What do we think about for you, man?
I don't know, man. That's a great question. I gotta give that one some thought. Nothing's coming off the top of my head, but I would love to have something like that, right? Something that I get associated with, or people tag me in on.
It works. It does. It's like, yeah, you kind of got to lean into whatever works.
Yeah. So you think about when you were hiring, right? When you were building a team, experience or coachability, if you had to pick one.
Coachability, it's kind of neither of them. I don't know. It depends. Like if you're hiring an IC, I wrote a fun piece on if you're a RevOps person, what are like the 8 to 9 skills you need if you're going to be a RevOps IC, right? So I think a lot of like ICs I'm going to hire for aptitude and looking around corners, taking ownership, managing up. It's more than, I don't want coachability, right? Because I don't have the time to coach. But at the director level and the VP level, you're looking for experience, but you still need that same mentality, right? So I'm looking for a mentality. I've got the fun one, and I'll pull it up while we're talking around, like, what does it take to be a director? And to me, those are like, at Box, we had Dan, I forget his last name, but he was the COO. He was just super inspiring to me. Like he would talk a lot about, hey, at Box, we don't compromise on what it takes to be a VP and what it takes to be a director. And so I really learned from a lot of that stuff as well too, right? And so to me, things like managing up, the ability to force trade-offs that we talked about earlier, the ability to define and articulate the strategy for your function, the ability to like communicate in metrics. And it's just like you have these people, and it's not coachability, right? Like I can't teach you how to think about these things. You either need to have it ingrained in you that you're aggressive thinker, pulling me forward, managing up, or not. And so like, yeah, I don't have time for coaching, but I need those skills.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably as you're talking about here, I think curiosity is probably equally important, is wanting to learn and problem solve and maybe challenge the status quo, do those forced trade-offs, that type of thing.
Yeah, those are good ones. I'll, if you want to include in the show notes, I can pull up the other one at some point where we talk about what were the skills that people really needed to be like just foundational skills. I cared about them for RevOps, but they were so important for just like everything else. So pull the business forward, stakeholders coming to me with raving feedback, anticipate issues and bring solutions. They're super collaborative. They can prioritize, and they can deal well with challenge and change, right? Like those are important. Like solving root causes and having empathy and things like that are just, you can't coach those.
Yeah. So if folks want to get access to that, how could they, is it ungated on the Whispered side? Is it something they can reach out to?
Yeah, I have nothing, no content is gated on Whispered at all.
Okay. All right, 2 more questions for you, Andy. You've had a really great career, a lot of different experiences. Having the benefit of hindsight, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I don't know. I mean, I learned it really early, which was I graduated from Stanford Business School in 2001, and there were no jobs, right? Like it hurt, and so I had to get really good at networking, communicating who I was, the value I could bring much earlier than most people do. Most people are like, cool, graduate, do a job. I'm high slope, but you keep getting hired. I got punched in the face, and I went into business school in 99 and came out in 01. So I feel like I learned a lot of those skills earlier than most people did. So I guess maybe my advice would be figure out how to help your network, build your brand,
Yep.
help others earlier rather than later.
One thing that I've done, I started it at the beginning of 2025, and it's been great, is there's been so many great people that I've worked with throughout my career, and I have good relationships with them at the time that you're working with them, and then you go start another job, they go start, and you lose and so, weekly, I've just reached out to somebody I worked with 10, 15, 20 years ago and been like, hey, let's connect, right? And we spend 15, 20 minutes, and it's been great just to rekindle that friendship as well, but B, it's amazing at when you speak with people and they're like, oh, what are you up to? And just to rekindle that network, and they can make introductions and things like that. One piece of advice that I would give to myself is don't ignore those people that you were pretty close to 15, 20 years ago. They keep those relationships fresh, but it takes work, right? It's really easy to be to see their name and be like, oh, I haven't talked to them in a while. Reach out to them, right? And have a conversation with them.
Yeah, I like that. I think people don't think about nodes as much as they should. It's sometimes they're it feels really good to be head of, have a seat at the table. But if you keep doing that at shitty little companies, it's going to be hard. I heard a great quote today. Actually, I wrote it down, which is, I've made too many art films. I need to make the next Matrix, the next blockbuster, right? By that, they basically meant I've worked at all these little shitty companies and now I struggle, right? And so I think sometimes tuck your ego and go take a number two somewhere instead.
Yeah. All right, last question, Andy, and maybe this isn't quite a fair question to ask a founder, because I'm sure you've put a lot of time in building Whispered, but outside of work, what do you like to do?
I got two little boys. They're really good kids.
How old?
7 and 9. Okay, so they're not always good kids, but most of the time.
Boys or girls?
Two boys, yeah.
Two boys, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So I've got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it's a great age.
Wow. Yeah, you're about to get to a really fun age. That's a really cute age right now. It's they still think the world of you. There's no hey bro, how you doing? Talk. It's a really good age for sure.
Yeah.
Randy.
My daughter's my 7-year-old, and she's not a little girl anymore, but she still thinks that I'm the cat's meow, And so I'm I fear the day that she doesn't want me to lay with her at night, because she doesn't know this, but it's actually the best part of my day. But maybe it's different with boys at that age, but it's just such a great age. So
it's really cool. Our guys are still love the tucks every night and all that stuff.
Yeah, cool. Well, listen, we're coming up on the hour here, Andy. I really just want to thank you for joining me today. I love the concept of Whispered. I love the fact that you're able to just open up and share with us. If folks want to connect with you, what's the best way? LinkedIn?
I'm pretty good at LinkedIn, and then if they go on Whispered and they've got a cool background RA, I'll flag it to me, and they may hear from me as well too. So if they're looking for a job, don't ping me on LinkedIn. Just go to Whispered. It's better. If they're looking for content, I got some of my content, all the career content's on Whispered, all the GTM content is on LinkedIn, and I enjoy meeting great people. There's fortuitous things where people like you and I meet, and you build great relationships on this stuff.
Exactly. Cool. Well, Andy, thanks so much. That's another episode of the Revenue Lounge. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Take care.